Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Gonna do a little bit different video tonight. Actually gonna focus on some business practices tonight. A question I get a lot on Instagram from guys starting out and even seasoned guys is, how do I get work? How do I find good builders? Because ultimately, as a trim subcontractor, we depend on the builders to feed us work. And we really want to have good relationships with good builders who are nice to work for. So the question gets brought up, well, how do I find good builders, or even how do I even get started in trim subcontracting? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm going to try to go through just some points that are counterintuitive to what you might think. You might think as you try to enter into the trim subcontracting world that if you're the best trim carpenter and you have the best price, that you're automatically going to get hired with a builder. And that's actually not the case. In the subcontractor world, most builders who are any good have figured out that relationships are key. So there's kind of a hierarchy with subcontracting. And I've found, having worked for quite a few different builders, is that most builders, and almost every builder, wants to have a main subcontractor. They're going to want to have the guy that they're very loyal to and who is going to in turn be loyal to them. They're going to want to know that they have a guy that they can depend on, who's always going to give them top priority whenever they have houses ready. Now, some subcontractors work for just one builder, some work for a lot of different builders. But if you're trying to build homes and you don't know that you're going to be able to get your subcontractors there when you need them, that's a big problem. So these long-standing relationships develop, and they're really important. So just because I might be a better trim carpenter or I might have a better price point doesn't mean I'm going to be able to just come in and take the business from somebody else, or even be given the opportunity to compete with another subcontractor. You may find if you're trying to cold call, you'll just get shut down by builders if you're looking for work, because they're valuing relationships above just going with the first guy that comes along with big talk, or the first guy that comes along with a cheaper price point. So the good builders realize typically they're going to have relationships that are already there, and they're going to be very slow to just kick those relationships aside. So how do you get in? Keep an eye out for whenever, say, one subcontractor might retire, or one subcontractor might be doing suboptimal work or something like that. It takes time to kind of just integrate yourself into the subcontractor world. It doesn't just happen overnight, but just be patient with it and be available whenever opportunities come. So first question let's focus on is, how do you acquire a builder? How do you earn their business? How do you get your foot in the door? So what you might think would be, well, maybe you should cold call, meaning just start picking up the phone and start calling guys. In my experience, that doesn't work. If you can imagine just like a relationship where a guy's trying to go out with a girl or whatever, if some random dude walks up to a girl and says, hey, you want to go out? That's probably not going to work out well if she doesn't know anything about him. So if that makes any sense, how do you get your foot in the door with the builder? Well, first off, you want to establish some kind of a track record with them where they have some kind of an awareness of who you are, what you're about. So for me, I always tell guys there's two key connections for subcontractors, and that is your vendors. So whoever is selling that builder or those builders millwork, you want to get in with those vendors. Most builders, whenever they need a subcontractor, they're not going to go on the internet. They're going to go to their vendors. If they need a siding guy, they're gonna go to whoever's selling them their siding and they're gonna ask, hey, who's good? If they need a trim guy, they're gonna go to their millwork supplier and ask, hey, who's good? Because that supplier is gonna have a lot of experience with a lot of different builders, selling a lot of product, and they're gonna know who's who and what's what. So probably more important than anything is to establish relationships with vendors. And if you do the best work and your price is on point for whatever market you're working in, that vendor is going to want to recommend you, because ultimately that is going to make them look good whenever you make the vendor look good by doing good work for that builder. So having good relationships with vendors is huge. The other second key connection on getting in with builders is going to be other subcontractors. For me, as a trim subcontractor, probably the single most important subcontractor that I interact with is the painter, because they're the one that's following my work. I'm either going to make their job really easy or really difficult. So if I am making their job really easy, they're going to make sure that that builder knows about it, because they're going to want to follow me, because I'm actually making them money by making their job easier. So that's really huge. But it can also be other subcontractors too. It could be a framer, a concrete guy, whatever. If they know you, they'll put your name in with a builder if they think highly of you. So two really important key connections would be your vendors and subcontractors. Don't think that you're going to get in with builders by cold calling or even having a really good marketing campaign. At least in my world, marketing means almost nothing. A lot of subcontractors don't even letter their vehicles, because ultimately it doesn't really matter that much in our world. It's more about your performance and what you offer. So the other key thing to remember is whenever a builder wants to investigate a subcontractor in our world nowadays with social media and websites and everything, it is good to have an online presence. They're going to want to try to figure out what kind of person you are. So they might check out your personal Facebook page and see what's there. So maintaining a good presence there is important. Also Instagram. But also work pictures. What kind of work do you do? If a builder, a high-end custom home builder, is looking for a subcontractor to do their trim work, and let's say they go on my page and they see a mixture of trim and siding and plumbing and none of it's very good, that's automatically going to send a message that I'm not their ideal candidate. But if they go to my Instagram page or my Facebook page and they see nothing but custom carpentry work, and they see a person that's passionate about that, and they see someone who at least appears to be somewhat moral and just a good all-around person, you're going to be a lot more likely to get your foot in the door. So maintaining a good presence on those social media platforms is really important this day and age. For smaller businesses like mine, I don't feel a website is all that important, but it might be something to consider if it fits your particular type of trade business. So on the subject of social media, we talk about cold calling kind of not working because the builder just flat out has no idea who you are or what you do or what you're about. A good way to kind of establish a presence in the builder's mind is through social media. Start liking photos, maybe send a message here or there, just something almost to kind of break the ice and keep some, I think in marketing you'd call it front of mind presence with that builder. So again, back to that hierarchy of builders aren't just looking for new subcontractors all the time. They're only looking whenever there's a new need. But if you've maintained that front of mind presence and then that need comes along, you're going to be more likely to acquire that builder's business. So that's something important to do if you are looking for work. stay friendly on social media, maybe go to trade events or whatever, just something to maintain that top of mind presence. So then whenever you are given an opportunity to look at a job for a builder, or maybe even to do a job, you don't want to go into it having something to prove in a bad way. A lot of guys make the mistake of trying to oversell themselves. They talk real big about their work, talk real big about what they can do, and usually that's actually a dead giveaway that the person is unqualified. Qualified people who excel in their craft usually don't need to verbally prove anything. They prove their value, number one, by the work that they do, and then number two, they prove their value not through their own words, but through the words of other people. They let other people talk for them. And that goes back to those relationships with other subcontractors and vendors. If you're good, the builder's probably already going to know that you're good based on the feedback they've gotten from other people. So no need to talk too much. So that's one side of the spectrum. Be confident, but don't overtalk. Then there's the other side of it. Don't be cocky. Even if you are good, at the end of the day, nobody wants to work with somebody who is arrogant or who thinks they're the center of the universe. For a good relationship between a subcontractor and a builder, both parties need to need each other. So if one party is too arrogant and feels like they have all of the power in the relationship, it's probably not going to work long term, because one party is eventually probably going to leverage that power and to the detriment of the other party, and it's not going to work. So keep that in mind. Be confident, but let your work speak for itself. Something that I did whenever I started trying to transition into just doing new construction builds, new construction trim jobs, I actually worked for a lot of different builders over the course of 1 to 2 years. And that was a really positive thing for me, because it allowed me to kind of almost, you'd call it date the builder, where you get to really quickly see what they're about and what they're not about, and if it's a good cultural fit or not. You can usually tell after one house what that builder's values are, if they're all about price, if they're all about quality, if there are other subcontractors that are before you are going to make your job easy or difficult, how organized the builder is. All those different things are really important to kind of gauge that. How quickly do they need the job completed? That's another big thing for me as a one-man show. That eliminates a lot of builders, because speed is more important than quality for a lot of builders. So I actually think it's good to try out a number of different builders as you're trying to find kind of your niche. And that was a really positive thing for me in my business. So let's say you've been given the opportunity to bid a job, and maybe now you've even been awarded the job for the first time with a builder. My advice and my mentality that I had as I was transitioning into trimming new homes was every job was like a Super Bowl to me, meaning it was the only thing that mattered, and executing the job 100% and as quickly as possible was extremely important, because it's in that initial stage of the relationship where you're proving yourself, you're showing your value. But the other side of the coin is, if you're just entering into these situations with builders, there's a good chance that maybe you aren't super efficient at this point and you're just getting started trimming homes. So it's even more important to work harder, put in those extra hours, and spend that extra mental energy to make sure you're dialed in and focused as you're completing those jobs. Because if you are just trying to get into the business and you go halfway, or even at a regular pace, and you're working a regular 40-hour week, it might not be enough to win that builder's business. So my advice, if you're trying to get in and you're given an opportunity that means something to you, treat it like the Super Bowl. It's the only thing that matters. It's 100% focus, deliver everything that you've got and then some, and make sure that you're winning the opportunity for the next job from that builder. Make sure that you execute at a high level and that they're going to be very impressed with you. That's really important. So another thing that I think is a little bit of a misconception a lot of guys have is they expect the builders to be perfect. They expect the builder to have everything dialed in and to flow perfectly so that this subcontractor can come in and just execute their job perfectly. And what I've seen and what I feel is that if you really want to succeed as a subcontractor, you've got to invest yourself in that builder's business, meaning you've got to also put in the time and the energy to help them develop their systems around your particular sub-trade. So for me as a trim guy, I'm helping the builder develop his systems, finding out the flaws in the process, figuring out how to deliver a better quality product. I don't necessarily go into the relationship expecting everything to be perfect. I want to play an integral role in developing those systems, and that in turn makes me valuable as a subcontractor. If you walk into the relationship and it's just a transactional thing where you're just there to do your job and get your check, that's not valuable to a builder. What's valuable to a builder is a subcontractor who's going to work with them to help them build their business, not somebody who's going to come in with the expectation that everything is laid out on a silver platter for them from the get-go. Now, I also have builders that I've worked for who are extremely organized and extremely dialed in their systems and processes, especially in the production building realm of carpentry. And the reality is, with those builders who are the most dialed in, I'm not as valuable as a subcontractor because they don't need me as much. They don't need me to have eyes on everything. They don't need me to be helping them understand things. They don't need my design expertise. They don't need, my effort in scheduling things, whatever it is. So that relationship has got kind of an odd twist on it where I'm not as valuable as a subcontractor in that relationship. So it's a little bit different, but you actually want to work for builders who can use you in the best way possible. The less that a builder needs somebody good and somebody who's really mentally aware of what's going on, the less valuable you're going to be to them, and therein the less you're going to be able to get paid, and you're also going to be easy to be replaced in those situations. If you're irreplaceable to a builder, you have a lot less to worry about in the day-to-day because you know that relationship is going to be important for that builder continuing onward into the future. So a few other pointers I put down as I was just kind of thinking about this question I got recently on how to maintain those relationships with builders. As a subcontractor, always maintain the upper hand in the value that you're offering. Now, I think in a healthy relationship, both parties should need each other. But as for myself, I want to make sure I'm offering more value than I'm taking as a subcontractor, because if I'm not, then I'm easy to replace. But if I'm making sure that I'm always having the upper hand in the value that I'm offering, then that makes me very difficult to replace as a subcontractor. So, just things like quality of work is important. Doing what you say you're going to do is important with the schedule. Keeping an eye on the other trades around you, and if you see something wrong on a job site, that you actually point it out to the builder versus just getting the tunnel vision that a lot of subcontractors get, where they're not aware of anything besides exactly what they're doing. It provides value if you can see the whole bigger picture of a house and watch out for the other sub trades and make their jobs easier and see problems coming. Things like that add a lot of value. So always make sure that you have the upper hand in the value that you're offering. The most dangerous thing that we face as subcontractors is we're not working for the general public where it's easy to just pick up a job here or there. Like I was talking about before, there's a pecking order with subcontractors. And if this builder kicks you to the curb today, you're not necessarily just going to be able to go and pick up more work tomorrow. It's not always that easy because those other builders have their guys that they've been using for years also. So we become very vulnerable in that if we lose the builders that we've depended on or that we're trying to depend on. So always maintain that upper hand of value to make sure you're not going to get kicked to the curb. The next thing, a piece of advice that I think is very, very important to subcontractors is to have very good financial discipline. You want to get out of debt as quickly as possible, and you want to maintain operating capital in the bank at all times. If you have 6 months savings, worth of your expenses and salary, that's ideal. You're going to be able to make much better decisions if you have that cushion. But if you're surviving week to week, paycheck to paycheck, builders, not all of them, but a lot of them, they have a high level of awareness, and they're going to know that you have that vulnerability. If you're calling every time you get a job done the day after you get it done asking for a check because you can't pay your bills, that automatically tells them, hey, this guy doesn't have financial discipline, and if I want to, I can squeeze him a little bit because I know he needs the money. So if I want to squeeze him a little bit to get his price down, he's probably going to cave in because I know he's got bills to pay next week that he doesn't have money for. It's a completely different story if you have 6 months of expenses covered and you have no debt. So I think that's really important to thrive as a subcontractor, to have that confidence in your finances that you're fine, even if you lose a builder that you've worked for a long time and you're off work for a month or 2 months or whatever. Knowing that you're going to be fine is going to help you to be more confident and to even bid your jobs more appropriately also. Next thing that's really important is be confident in your numbers. Know what it actually takes to get work done, be fair, be reasonable. A good long-standing relationship between a subcontractor and a builder depends on both parties understanding that it takes a certain amount of money to be in business and respecting that. But also, especially on the part of the subcontractor, not getting greedy and not taking advantage of a builder's loyalty or patronage. So if you are able to establish that long-standing relationship, that means honoring the trust that's there and not taking advantage of that in the pricing arena. And in my opinion, most builders are going to understand that if they want good help, that there's a reasonable amount of money that's going to have to be charged, and squeezing a guy is not good long-term for quality relationships and maintaining good subcontractors. If you want to keep good subcontractors, you've got to treat them well, and you've got to respect the fact that they're in business to make a profit also. And subcontractors have to respect that builder's loyalty. So that's very important. Another really important tip is don't underbid a job just to get your foot in the door. I'm not saying that if you're given an opportunity with a new builder, I'd be willing to work for a little bit less money just to try them out and see what they're about. But you don't want to underbid, because that builder in a way is probably depending on your numbers then, and they can go and they can bid future work off of those numbers. And if say you complete job 1 and you bid it too low, and then you go back to job 2 and you bid that one and you're 30% higher across the board on everything, that's not good for a relationship either. So it's a little bit easier if you've been in the business and you just simply know, like, I've done it enough, I know my numbers, I know how long things take. But starting out, I didn't know my labor rates, how long it took to do things as well. And that's something you got to be really mindful of, and not go too low whenever you're trying to get your foot in the door. All right, so last point I'm going to make in this video is in regards to ego and the danger that it can play as you try to acquire work from builders. It can be a real poison to your business long term if you let ego enter into the equation. And what I mean by that is, whenever you work for the general public, you have a very large pond, a large pool of potential clients, just thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But whenever you enter the realm of subcontracting, you're only working for builders, and the size of that pond and the fish in it get much, much smaller. And of the fish in that smaller pond, there's only a very small percentage that are going to be ideal for you, even in a large city. So you don't want to be burning bridges with builders. Now, a mistake you can make is you can go to work for a builder and you can have a bad experience, and you could let your ego get in the way and say some things you shouldn't, or maybe not act rightly towards them, and you permanently burn that bridge. But the reality is, we all get better in our businesses, we all develop as people, and I've had a number of times with builders where I've worked for them and they've either squeezed me on price, or their quality was subpar, or they didn't say what they were going to do. Whatever the case was, I had to exit the relationship and not work for them further. But then later down the road, I worked for them again, and usually it's because they straightened out the area that they needed to straighten out and how they were handling themselves in business, and we ended up getting along just fine. So if I would have burnt those bridges, then I never would have had those opportunities again. And again, that pond of fish is very small, and you can actually find that, especially as young builders start out, they've got the hard lessons to learn just like all of us. So they're going to make mistakes. They're going to find out whenever they squeeze guys on price that that's not good long term. They're going to find out that whenever they take 2 months to pay bills, that that's not good long term. And as time goes on, they might correct those things and actually turn out to be a really good builder to work for. So don't let ego get into the equation, and don't burn bridges. Maintain positive relationships, even if in the silence of your own mind you think there's not a chance on earth you'll ever work for that person again. Try to leave a positive impression with them. So let me know what you guys think of this video. This is something I want to do more of, talking business, just the ins and outs of running a business. There's not much information out there on how to run trade businesses well. So hopefully maybe we can contribute to that conversation a little bit. Drop me a comment in the notes below. Let me know what you think, and let me know the questions that you guys would even have for future videos on addressing other topics. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again in the next video.